Hello, welcome to the Mediocre Takes podcast, the podcast where we talk about our mediocre takes on the shows and movies we watch. I'm Marco and I'm here with my co-host Mal. How are you doing, Mal?
I am so nervous.
Are you really?
Yes.
I'm sorry you feel that way, but I'm sure you'll do fine. Today we're going to be talking about a pilot slash short called Becky Prim, and instead of me explaining the plot of the pilot like I usually do, this time Mal's going to be explaining the plot.
Okay, here I am. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about Becky Prim, which is a proof of concept short film created by Carl Hedricka, I think, who is a storyboard artist and who's worked on a few things. The one that's most relevant is the Cuphead show. He's a storyboard artist for the Cuphead show. We begin in a health class where our main character, Becky Prim, is watching an anti-drug PSA. After class, Becky meets up with her friend Ello, who looks like Great Value Velma, who's looking for her butterscotch candy. After she retrieves her old people candy, they make their way to their bench so Becky can take a smoke break, and they run into Creepy Nerd. I don't know if he has a name. I don't think he does, so I'm just gonna call him Creepy Nerd, who tries to show off his pet bumblebee. She smacks his hand with a textbook and tells him she's allergic to bees. Once they make it to Becky's sacred bench, they see Jessica Kimley and her bitch-ass cronies. Jessica fat shames Ello and tells Becky that it's her bench now. Becky starts yelling at her and says that Jessica will be sitting on that bench over Becky's cold, dead body. Then, right after she says that, she gets stung by a bee and drops dead. She appears in a stagnant, otherworldly ghost realm where she sees a bunch of creepy dead people. We then cut to a memorial in the school for Becky. The creepy nerd is being creepy. He licks a poster of her and says that she was so hot. Becky, in her other realm, senses Jessica and her little colt are sitting on her bench, and she ends up re-entering the human realm and consensually takes over the body of Creepy Nerd in order to take revenge on Jessica. She meets up with Ello and goes to sit on their bench. Ello is, by the way, like totally cool with this whole situation. She even bought in a Ouija board to try and message her friendship goals. Jessica and her friends confront Becky, and Becky forces them to have a vision where they are turned into a tree. Becky then brutally cuts down the tree, turns them into a bench, and sits on it. Then they're thrown out of their vision, and a traumatized looking Jessica gives up and says she can have the bench. She then walks away, dragging her significantly more traumatized looking friends with her. As Becky chills on her bench, it breaks. The end.
Okay, so the first thing I have to say is I love the fact that Becky says she hates overblown and unrealistic nerd stereotypes, and right after she says that, we get an overblown and unrealistic nerd stereotype. The pilot was so much in the sense that I felt like it was all over the place. I liked it, but at the same time it was a bit too exaggerated. Like there was always something that was always too exaggerated happening, but I mean, like, that's kind of the point, so I kind of like it for that in that sense. I was not expecting that Becky would end up dying in this short. Like, it's such a good twist and I love it so much, especially since it seemed really well written. Like, it came out of nowhere. It was really well done, and I loved it. Also, I love that one scene where there's a nerd guy with the short dinosaur arms as he tries to drink chocolate milk. I found it to be very funny. Also, that nerd with the Becky shrine was extremely creepy. Like, I hated that for her. I like the final joke in the short where Becky, who is possessing the nerd guy, and the friend end up sitting on the bench only for it to finally break. It was a good way to end the pilot. Why do the Starbucks girls become trees? Like, that was so random to me. I don't know. At the same time, I can see why, like, with the whole bench thing, but it just freaked me out and, like, not freaked me out, it just weirded me out because it was out of nowhere. It felt really random. And I really like that beginning scene where the kid is fighting PSA. Yeah, PSA thing. I really liked that scene. It was cool.
So first I have to say this animation is so, for me, reminiscent of the cartoon The Mighty Bee, which I have not watched in years, and I feel like not a lot of people have also watched, but for what I remember, it slaps. It also, of course, reminds me of the Ren and Stimpy show, especially with the colorful language used. Speaking of colorful language, there are so many iconic and memorable lines in this. It was so fun, and I feel like it's also what has kept this show in my head after all these years. I watched this probably like when it came out in 2016, I think. I thought that shit was the funniest thing in the world. It's just so fucking iconic and funny. The voice acting was A1. The voices really fit the characters, and each one was different in a way, and it had its own little pizzazz that made each character memorable. The story was so simple, but it was so accurate and relatable. I don't know about you, assigned seats were very much a thing for me in school. Like, I sat at the same tables during lunch when I was in the library, and I would get mad when someone stole my seat. Like you said before, with like over exaggeration and stuff. The thing that I love about animation in general is that I feel like the creators are able to exaggerate characters and situations in a way that feels normal for cartoons, but would be absolutely ridiculous if it was a live action show, which is what is so charming about cartoons for me.
Overall, I found this to be a very competent short. I really liked it. I liked the writing, even though it was a bit over exaggerated to me, and I really liked the jokes. Also, that plot twist was really great. Like, I'm really stuck on that. Like, that was such a great writing choice in my eyes.
I think it would be super cool to get a proper short film about this, but that's not going to happen. And I'm okay with that because it's still a very charming work of art that can stand on its own. And honestly, I think this being like a rough proof of concept really matches the vibe of it anyway.
Anyways, you guys, those are our thoughts on Becky Prim. If you want to send us a voice message on Anchor, there's a link in the description below.
If you want us to review a short animated film that you really love, then share it with us on our socials, which are
At MidTakesPod. We have an Instagram, Twitter, and a TikTok, which will also be in the description below if I remember to write it in the description. And that's everything, so goodbye.